Amina's profound transformation from a child bride to a leading advocate against child marriage and vesicovaginal fistula, or VVF. Facing immense personal suffering and societal rejection, Amina's story intersects with a transformative campaign led by Dr. Miriam and her NGO to combat VVF and promote women's rights. Through a series of crises, including a devastating fire and a severe drought, Amina's relentless fight for reform highlights the urgent need for awareness and intervention. Her compelling journey not only reshapes her community but also underscores the importance of ending child marriage and preventing VVF through education and advocacy. This powerful narrative showcases the enduring impact of courage and collective action in advancing social justice. #Stop Vesicovaginal Fistula, #Stop VVF, #Stop Child Marriage. Amina's world is one of kaleidoscopic beauty and innocence. The days of her childhood are marked by laughter that dances like sunlight across her family's modest home. Her mother's lullabies, soft and melodious, are the backdrop to her dreams, painting a future filled with endless possibilities. Amina's laughter echoes through the air as she twirls in the fields, her dress swirling around her like the petals of a wildflower. Each day seems like a promise of a life ripe with hope and joy. But the tapestry of her life begins to fray the day she learns about her impending marriage. The news comes wrapped in the somber tones of her father's voice, each word a tightening noose around her heart. At just 12 years old, the weight of the world suddenly presses down on her fragile shoulders. Her dreams of exploring the world and building a future dissolve into the harsh reality of a fate sealed by tradition and familial duty. The wedding ceremony, a grand display of cultural rites and religious observances, stands in stark contrast to the heavy reality it signifies for Amina. The vibrant hues of her bridal attire, scarlet, gold, and emerald, are meant to signify joy and celebration, but to Amina, they feel like shackles. Each step she takes towards Yusuf, the man she has been thrust upon, is laden with dread. Yusuf, twice her age, is a figure of imposing authority, his face set in a stern mask that betrays no hint of kindness. As Amina walks down the aisle, the air thick with the scent of incense and the murmur of solemn prayers, her heart races with an unspoken terror. The traditional songs that once felt joyous now seem to mock her, their melodies tainted by the fear that grips her. Her future stretches out before her like a dark tunnel, its end obscured and uncertain. The life she once envisioned, a life of laughter and adventure, has been replaced by the oppressive shadow of her new reality. The wedding feast, filled with joyous celebration and feasting, becomes a surreal backdrop to Amina's internal struggle. Guests dance and laugh, oblivious to the turmoil that churns within her. The clinking of glasses and the joyful chatter seem distant, a world away from the stark reality of her predicament. Amina's once bright dreams are now overshadowed by a future she cannot escape, a future that feels both overwhelming and suffocating. Amina standing alone in a corner of her new home, her wedding attire now a stark reminder of the life she has left behind. The vibrant colors of her dress, which once symbolized the promise of a joyful future, now feel like a prison, binding her to a life she did not choose. Her childhood, once filled with warmth and possibility, has been abruptly and irrevocably altered, leaving her to grapple with a future shrouded in uncertainty and dread. The first night of Amina's marriage unfolds in darkness, both literal and metaphorical. The ceremonial lights that once illuminated her wedding day now cast long, ominous shadows within the confines of Yusuf's home. The room is cold, the walls lined with heavy tapestries that seem to absorb sound and light. Amina's new world is enveloped in an eerie silence that contrasts sharply with the joyous noise of the wedding celebration just hours before. The oppressive stillness is occasionally broken by the creaks of the old house, each sound a reminder of her isolation. As Amina sits on the edge of the bed, Her heart pounds with a rhythm of terror that seems to synchronize with the faint rustling of the wind outside. Yusuf, having dismissed the attendants and guests earlier, now approaches her with a demeanor that is both commanding and unfamiliar. His eyes, once hidden behind a mask of ceremonial solemnity, now reveal a harshness that sends shivers down her spine. There is no tenderness, no warmth, only an authoritative presence that demands obedience. Yusuf's demands are relentless and bewildering. He instructs Amina to prepare herself for the night in a tone that brooks no argument. Each command is delivered with a firmness that contrasts sharply with the soft, nurturing words of her mother. Amina fumbles with her wedding attire, struggling to adjust to the new, uncomfortable garments that are as foreign to her as the man she is now bound to. Her hands tremble, and tears well up in her eyes, but she dare not make a sound. The fear of Yusuf's displeasure is a powerful deterrent, muffling her cries and stifling her emotions. The night progresses with a chilling detachment as Yusuf's behavior turns increasingly cruel. His physical demands are beyond what Amina's young body can endure, and the pain she experiences is compounded by the emotional betrayal she feels. Her mind, once filled with dreams of a different future, is now consumed by a silent nightmare. The intimacy she had hoped for, or at least imagined in some romanticized form, is replaced by a painful and dispassionate reality. Every touch, every command, and every harsh word from Yusuf chips away at the remnants of hope that Amina clung to. The room, once a symbol of her new beginning, becomes a prison where her dreams are systematically dismantled. She lies in the darkness, feeling the weight of her new reality pressing down on her, her body and spirit slowly breaking under the strain. The silence of the night is deafening, filled with the echoes of her unspoken fears and the oppressive loneliness of her situation. As the night stretches on, Amina's suffering becomes a haunting reminder of the life she has been forced into. The cruel treatment she endures is not an isolated incident but a harbinger of the brutal existence that lies ahead. Her childhood dreams, once vivid and full of promise, now seem like distant memories, overshadowed by the harshness of her present reality. The silent nightmare that envelopes her is a painful prelude to the long, dark journey that she must navigate in her new life. As the days pass, Amina's pregnancy becomes a stark and painful reality. Her young body, still maturing and delicate, struggles under the immense physical strain of carrying a child. The once hidden signs of her pregnancy now become visible, and with each passing day, her discomfort grows. Amina endures nausea, fatigue, and the relentless aches of her changing body, all while grappling with the emotional weight of her situation. The joy she once imagined motherhood might bring is overshadowed by the harshness of her reality. Yusuf's treatment becomes increasingly cruel and indifferent. He dismisses her suffering as inconsequential, further isolating Amina. His frequent outbursts and harsh demands exacerbate her distress, leaving her feeling helpless and abandoned. The abuse she endures is both physical and emotional, deepening her isolation and despair. Complications arise as Amina's pregnancy progresses. She experiences severe pain and frequent bouts of dizziness, signs that her health is deteriorating. The lack of medical care only amplifies her suffering. Each trip to the village healer, who offers only traditional remedies, leaves her feeling more desolate and alone. The hope she once had for a bright future dims with every passing day as her physical and emotional states deteriorate. Amina's dreams of a nurturing and joyful motherhood are replaced with a stark and frightening reality. Her future, once filled with promise, now seems an insurmountable burden of fear and pain, setting the stage for the trials that lie ahead. Childbirth for Amina is a harrowing ordeal, a culmination of physical and emotional suffering that she endures in the darkness of her small, unfamiliar home. The labor is prolonged and agonizing, the pain intensified by Amina's weakened state and the lack of proper medical assistance. Yusuf, detached and uninterested, provides no support or comfort, leaving Amina alone with her torment. When the child finally arrives, Amina's relief is short-lived. Her body, already fragile, begins to show signs of distress. She feels an incessant, uncomfortable leakage that she cannot explain or manage. The villagers, bound by tradition and superstition, offer no real help. The symptoms of what is later identified as Vesicovaginal Fistula, VVF, are dismissed as a minor inconvenience or even as a divine punishment. Amina's constant leakage of urine leads to persistent discomfort and the putrid smell that follows her everywhere. The condition remains undiagnosed due to the lack of medical resources and knowledge in the village. Amina's suffering is compounded by the humiliating stigma attached to her condition. She becomes a subject of pity and whispers behind closed doors, her plight seen as a source of shame rather than a medical emergency. Her once innocent expectations of motherhood are replaced with a relentless cycle of physical pain and psychological trauma. The physical symptoms are just a part of Amina's suffering. The profound impact on her mental state is devastating. Her dignity is stripped away, leaving her feeling like an outcast in her own home. She is trapped in a nightmare of constant discomfort and humiliation, isolated from those who might offer understanding or help. The darkness of her reality looms large, overshadowing any remnants of hope or normalcy. As Amina grapples with her condition, the shadows of her new life deepen. Each day brings a new layer of suffering, revealing the harsh and unforgiving nature of her existence. The emotional toll is immense, her sense of self eroded by the relentless challenges she faces. As Amina's condition becomes more apparent, the villagers' reaction shifts from indifference to outright hostility. Deeply rooted in superstition, they begin to view her affliction as a curse, a divine punishment for sins unseen. Whispers of malediction spread like wildfire through the narrow lanes of the village, transforming Amina from a victim into a symbol of doom. The once familiar faces of neighbors now turn away in disgust, their eyes betraying a mixture of fear and scorn. The old women, whose superstitions and tales shape much of the village's worldview, gather in hushed circles, their voices tinged with accusations. They claim Amina's condition is a sign of her own wrongdoing or a portent of greater misfortunes. Their words are not just idle gossip but a reflection of the community's growing rejection. The mamas of caste and sinful follow Amina wherever she goes, making every step outside her door a gauntlet of silent judgment. Her family, initially supportive but increasingly fearful of the social fallout, begins to distance themselves from her. The home that was once her sanctuary becomes a place of isolation. Her parents, caught between their love for their daughter and the fear of being ostracized themselves, gradually withdraw. The walls of their home seem to close in on Amina, amplifying her sense of abandonment. They no longer engage in the comforting rituals of family life with her. Instead, they avoid eye contact and conversations, retreating into their own protective shells. Amina's condition becomes a symbol of shame for the entire household. The once shared meals are now quiet and tense, filled with unspoken resentment and discomfort. Neighbors' glances and the lack of support from her family deepen her sense of alienation. Each day, she is reminded of her new status as an outcast, her presence a constant reminder of the village's collective fear and prejudice. The social stigma adds a layer of torment to Amina's already difficult life. Her attempts to seek solace or help are met with doors closed in her face, both literally and figuratively. The emotional pain of isolation compounds the physical suffering of her condition, creating a suffocating atmosphere of despair. As she navigates this harsh new reality, the hope she once held for a return to a normal life dims further, leaving her in a state of profound loneliness and distress. The village is abuzz with rumors, a current of fear and suspicion weaving through the narrow alleys and open squares. Amina's affliction, already a source of scandal and discomfort, becomes the focus of growing whispers. The once innocent murmurs now take on a darker, more sinister tone. The shadow of superstition stretches long, reaching every corner of the community, transforming Amina's suffering into a spectacle of divine retribution. At the center of this turmoil is Binta, the village healer whose authority is built on a fragile foundation of ancient beliefs and unchallenged tradition. Seeing an opportunity to consolidate her power and deflect suspicion from her own inadequacies, Binta seizes upon Amina's condition. She publicly accuses Amina of witchcraft, framing her affliction as a curse brought upon by dark magic rather than a medical condition. Binta's accusations are laced with a mix of fear and opportunism. In a dramatic gathering at the village square, Binta recounts tales of Amina's supposed malevolent influence. She invokes the fear of witchcraft, weaving together half-truths and fabrications into a compelling narrative that resonates with the villagers' deep-seated fears. Her performance is theatrical, designed to amplify the sense of dread and guilt surrounding Amina's condition. The village, already primed by superstition, reacts with a mix of horror and righteous indignation. The idea that Amina's suffering is a divine punishment rather than a medical misfortune gains traction. The once compassionate eyes of neighbors now glint with suspicion and distrust. They begin to view Amina not as a victim of circumstance but as a harbinger of calamity. The accusation has devastating repercussions for Amina. Her situation, already dire, becomes even more precarious. The social ostracism she faces intensifies, and the daily hostility she encounters reinforces her isolation. She is now considered not only cursed but dangerous, a threat to the community's peace and harmony. Her pleas for help are drowned out by the cacophony of accusations and the rising tide of fear. The atmosphere in the village grows increasingly tense as a new wave of illness sweeps through the community. The sickness strikes suddenly, marked by fever, debilitating pain, and a sense of inexplicable dread. It begins with a few isolated cases but soon spreads, afflicting more villagers with each passing day. The mysterious nature of the illness only fuels the villagers' growing paranoia. Rumors quickly intertwine Amina's affliction with the new outbreak. The whispers that once labeled her a witch now escalate, with many convinced that her supposed curse is responsible for the suffering spreading through the village. The once hidden fears of the villagers erupt into open hostility. Amina, already ostracized, finds herself at the epicenter of a storm of blame. The village square, once a place of community gatherings, becomes a stage for escalating vitriol. Binta, ever the opportunist, stokes the flames of hysteria. She proclaims that the illness is a direct consequence of Amina's dark magic, further entrenching her position as a feared authority. Her claims are bolstered by the timing of the outbreak, which aligns with the height of the villagers' suspicion of Amina. As the illness continues to spread, so does the atmosphere of hostility. Neighbors who once avoided Amina now confront her with open contempt. The sickness is seen as a tangible manifestation of her curse, and the village's fear morphs into a fervent desire to find a scapegoat. The psychological pressure on Amina mounts as she is subjected to increasingly hostile treatment. Her home, once a place of refuge, becomes a prison. The villagers' hostility seeps through the walls, and the isolation she endures is both physical and emotional. Her daily existence is marked by fear and desperation as she is barred from seeking help or solace. The villagers' paranoia takes hold, and their behavior becomes more erratic and aggressive. Amina's once fragile sense of hope is shattered as the storm of blame intensifies. The social fabric of the village, already strained by superstition and fear, begins to unravel. The collective hysteria surrounding her condition magnifies her suffering, transforming her life into a relentless nightmare. Dr. Miriam and her NGO team arrive in Durok with a mission to address the dire maternal health issues plaguing the village, particularly Vesicovaginal Fistula (VVF). The team's arrival, marked by a convoy of medical supplies and an air of optimism, is a beacon of hope amidst the growing darkness surrounding Amina and other women suffering from similar conditions. From the moment they set foot in Duroc, the team is met with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. The villagers, deeply entrenched in their traditional beliefs, view the newcomers with suspicion. Dr. Miriam's modern medical practices and foreign methods clash sharply with the village's long-standing customs and superstitions. To many in Duroc, the arrival of the NGO is not a sign of relief but a threat to their way of life. The initial interactions are fraught with tension. Villagers gather at a distance, casting wary glances at the foreign aid workers. Some openly express their skepticism, accusing the team of disrupting their customs and imposing foreign ideologies. The village healer, Binta, is particularly vocal in her opposition. She sees the NGO as a direct challenge to her authority and fears losing her influence over the community. Binta's attempts to discredit Dr. Miriam and her team only add to the growing friction. Dr. Miriam, aware of the uphill battle ahead, remains steadfast in her mission. She understands that gaining the villagers' trust will be a significant hurdle. She begins by organizing community meetings, where she introduces the team's objectives and the benefits of modern medical care. Her approach is both respectful and assertive, aimed at bridging the gap between traditional beliefs and modern practices. Despite Dr. Miriam's efforts, the resistance from the village remains strong. The initial mistrust and hostility are evident in every interaction. The villagers' fears and doubts about the NGO's intentions create a barrier that the team must navigate with care and perseverance. As the team begins to offer medical assistance and education, small breakthroughs occur. A few villagers tentatively approach the team, curious about the promised relief. Dr. Miriam's dedication and patience start to show signs of slowly shifting perceptions. The initial glimmers of hope brought by Dr. Miriam and her NGO team are quickly overshadowed by the escalating resistance from the villagers. Binta, the village healer, sees the NGO not as a source of aid but as a direct threat to her authority and livelihood. Fueled by her desperation to maintain control and her deep-seated belief in the village's traditional practices, Binta actively works to undermine the team's efforts. The hostility manifests in various forms. Anonymous threats begin to appear, warning the NGO team to leave or face dire consequences. These threats, though veiled in ambiguity, are clear enough to instill fear. Vandalism becomes a regular occurrence, with the team's equipment being tampered with or damaged. The once welcoming clinic set up by the NGO is frequently found in disarray, its supplies scattered and some medical instruments rendered unusable. Rumors spread like wildfire, with Binta and her supporters stoking the fires of dissent. They claim that the NGO's interventions are harmful, asserting that the foreign practices are causing more harm than good. They accuse Dr. Miriam and her team of poisoning the village's well water or of conducting dangerous experiments. These baseless accusations are effective in sowing further mistrust among the villagers. Despite the growing hostility, Dr. Miriam and her team persist with remarkable resilience. They understand that their mission is not just about treating physical ailments but also about breaking through the wall of fear and prejudice that has been erected. Dr. Miriam spends long hours meeting with community leaders and influential villagers, attempting to address their concerns and demonstrate the benefits of modern medical care. Her efforts are met with varying degrees of success. While some villagers begin to cautiously support the NGO's presence, others remain staunchly opposed, echoing Binta's accusations and contributing to a climate of fear. The team's morale is tested as they navigate an environment fraught with sabotage and intimidation. Dr. Miriam's determination remains unshaken. She knows that the stakes are high not just for Amina but for the entire community suffering from preventable conditions like VVF. Her commitment to raising awareness about these issues drives her to continue despite the increasing threats. Through the flames of resentment, Dr. Miriam's unwavering resolve becomes a beacon of hope for those caught in the crossfire of change and resistance. The tranquil routine of Duroc is shattered in the dead of night as a massive fire erupts. The flames leap into the sky, painting the darkness with a terrifying glow. The inferno spreads with alarming speed, devouring everything in its path. The village, already fraught with tension and unrest, is suddenly plunged into chaos. The fire's ferocity is almost surreal. It seems to consume not just the physical structures but also the very essence of the village's peace. Wooden huts, once homes to families, are reduced to ashes. Livestock and personal belongings are lost to the encroaching flames. The crackling of burning wood and the wailing of distraught villagers fill the air, creating a cacophony of terror and despair.